Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Student Body President 2022 Lariat Debate. My name is Ava Dunwoody. I am the Baylor Lariat Editor-in-Chief, and I'll be moderating this debate today. Each of you go ahead and introduce yourself. We'll start with Dalton.
Okay. Hello, my name is Dalton Capps. I am a junior here from the Dallas area, born and raised Texan. I'm studying medical humanities on a pre-law track, and I have a double minor in legal reasoning and analysis and business administration. I'm involved in just a few different organizations here on campus, student government being one of them. Um, I'm also involved in Pre-Law Society, and then I am also a member of the Medical Ethics Discussion Society, and I work as a campus tour guide, excuse me. Um, so I'm running for student body president just because I believe that there aren't enough student voices being heard, and that I just think that the role of the student body president is to just advocate for the greater good of the students, and that is what I've found myself doing over these past few years here. And so I've served as a class officer for the past 3 years now, and so I just have kind of found myself advocating on a smaller scale. And so I believe that the student body role would be a great leeway into helping students advocate better for themselves and giving them a voice. So yeah, thank you.
Hunter?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hunter Walker. I am a current junior medical humanities major as well. However, I'm on the pre-dental track, and so my minors are in biology and biochemistry. I have served in student government in several different capacities so far, first of which is as a senator. And so the past 2 years, I have served first in the Campus Improvements and Affairs Committee, and then secondly in the Operations and Improvements Committee. I've also served as a member on the Transparency and Marketing Ad Hoc Committee, trying to make student government more transparent in the past semester in light of conversations about restructuring and other important monumental bills that we're currently working on. I also have served as a delegate in the Big 12 on the Hill conference, advocating for higher level research funding and other accessibility, affordability topics for Baylor University and the rest of Big 12. And then I am also currently the chaplain of student government. Outside of student government, I am a member of Phi Kappa Chi and local fraternity here at Baylor. I'm a member of Alpha Lambda Delta. I've spent some time in some pre-med organizations, but as a recent switch to pre-dent, I'm no longer a member of those organizations, but I was a part of medical service organization and a couple others. But that's basically my involvement in campus and around campus. And because of those involvements, I've fallen in love with student government and the opportunity that it gives to advocate for the student experience and craft a college experience that extends beyond ourselves. And so that actually prompted me to run for another SBO position last year, student body external vice president. And although I lost that election, I still believe firmly in the platform points that I brought to the student body last year. And it was a really close race. And I was very encouraged by the outcome of that election to come back and be another resource to offer myself to the student body should they choose to fall in love with the platform that I'm bringing this year.
Awesome. Do you each want a second to kind of talk about what your platforms are?
Sure.
Hunter, you can go first.
Absolutely. So I am honestly in love with my platform this year, and that's what's making it so encouraging for me to come back even after having lost last year, is because like Dalton alluded to, I believe that there is just some student populations that are not being seen, heard, or appreciated, and we have an incredible opportunity to include them and to advocate for them in student government. And so the heart of my campaign is actually a Bible verse that talks about in 1 Corinthians being one body and how God has created the members of the body so that there should be no division in the body, but that all parts should have equal concern for the other. And whether or not you're hearing that as a religious person, I think that the message is so clear because it is equity, that we are a member of the student body. And whether that's trying to find representation within student government or just simply creating resources available to the student body outside of student government, I want to talk about how to bring greater belonging at Baylor. And so those 4 points, TALK, are my means of which how I plan to talk about that belonging. So through transparency, advocacy, learning, and keeping our momentum. I don't know if you want me to dive into all 4 of those points or if you want me to do that throughout. I want to be considerate of time, but certainly I can come back to those. But I definitely am passionate about the idea of just making sure that we are marketing student government and creating the resource that it is to extend to all of the students on campus.
Thank you. Dalton?
Yes. So similar to what Hunter was saying, my platform is built a lot around just really educating our student body and also bringing awareness to kind of the functions of student government, how we're able to help them, how we're able to bring about more representation for the different multicultural groups around campus, all of the other organizations around campus, and how we can all work together in kind of unison and just feel comfortable in kind of just working together. And so my platform is based around community, affordability, and accessibility, and also sustainability. I don't have a fun little acronym like Hunter does, but just kind of, I'll get into more points later on, but I really do firmly believe that student government can create a very big impact here on campus, and that um, voices need to be heard, and they can be better represented by knowing that student government is there to help them. And so I really want just students to know that student government is there for their help and for any needs, any concerns that they may have. And so, yeah, but I'll go into my points later on. So thank you.
Thank you. The first question is, what have you done so far to impact Baylor's community and or campus? Whoever wants to go first can start.
I can do this one. Is that all right? Okay. So, like I said earlier, these past 3 years, I've served as a class officer, and so I've been able to work closely with the faculty. I also serve under our current student body president, so I have been able to work closely with her and just kind of learn the ins and outs of her position, and then also she's able to delegate some tasks to me as well for me to help her. And so, and just kind of in my class officer position, I have just been able to voice a lot of the concerns of the students that I have heard over my 3 years here. And just be able to voice them to our student body president, to faculty, and to other groups that they are wanting to hear. And then also I serve as the director of policy currently in student government. And so that is also in the executive branch. And so what I do as the director of policies, I oversee about 6 different committees, and those are the health, affordability, accessibility, diversity coalition, Title IX, and then student faith. And so those 6 different committees, I am able to kind of help guide them. They do have their own unique kind of role and ability to just impact Baylor students. And so I'm really blessed to be able to have the opportunity to just kind of help them, guide them, and just really impact other students around campus. And so also real quick, like I said, I serve as a campus tour guide currently. And so that is kind of able to help me positively impact Baylor's community and their future, because I'm able to show prospective students just the kind of love and community that the Baylor experience provides for us all. And so I just really enjoy getting to impact the lives of future Bears. And I just really hope that my job, is able to give students the same feeling of home that I'm sure all of us felt when we went on our tour, and just really up the Baylor experience for everybody. So yeah, thank you.
Hunter?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, I have worked in the legislative branch of student government as a senator for the past few years. And so what that means is I've worked to write legislation to hopefully benefit the student experience. And one of the most tangible ways that we do that in student government is utilizing the SGAF Student Government Allocation Fund to fund various events that happen on campus. And so I personally helped write bills for funding for student organizations like Delta Epsilon Psi with their movie night on McLean last year, as well as this year's movie night on McLean with a car show, which was really fun to go to, as well as tonight's Delta Night Live by Tri Delta, which I'm super excited to go to. I also helped fund FM 72, which has happened the past few years. So whether it's funding events like that or writing legislation for randomized ballots for better equality and equity to be shown in the voting process, I've helped sit in on conversations about that. But even more importantly, one of my favorite bills that I've ever written was actually last year in response to COVID. I collaborated with current student body president Gracie Kelleher to write an SI that I cleverly called Mask and You Shall Receive, where we used student government funds to deliver thousands of masks to Baylor students and the Waco community for those who couldn't afford them at that time. And what I love the most about that is because a lot of people who don't know student government, or people who think that they understand student government, always wonder, like, what do we actually do, and do you actually make a difference? And that's an opportunity where I got to see, okay, this is bigger than just a social club. This isn't just a mock, opportunity to dress nice and, feel better about myself. And likewise, when I was able to go have conversations with people in Washington, D.C. at Big 12 on the Hill conference to lobby for Baylor University and the rest of Big 12, it was moments like that that I realized we have an opportunity to actually shape the trajectory and the identity and the experience of Baylor University students. And so those are some of the things that I've done to impact Baylor's campus and the community within student government. I think outside of it, I've also just worked really hard to just pour into people's spiritual and personal character formation. As the current chaplain, I've really enjoyed meeting people where they are, having conversations about faith, because Baylor is a Baptist institution, but not every student professes that. And so to meet people where they are and have those conversations about what is it like to bring your own faith experience to a university that has a nominal faith journey that they ask people to embark on with them for their time at Baylor. And so just providing that empathy for those people who are generous to share their stories with me. But those are a couple of the things that I've done.
Awesome, thank you. The next question is, what do you think the role of student government is at Baylor, and what do you think it should be?
Absolutely.
Hunter, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I was just going to ask if I could hop in here. So kind of talking about bridging off of my last answer, I think that the biggest thing that comes down to student government, especially the role of student body president, is representing the student body. So to put it down simply, I would say it's to represent the student body. And that's actually in the mission statement that we read every week before beginning the Senate meetings. But what that means is it requires us to have a relationship with the student body, to be connected, to be well-versed in the happenings on campus, because not only do we represent the student body, but we actually advocate it to people who can make those changes. And so I just gave you an incredible overview of things that I've done in student government, but the reality is, as students have also seen, we are still students and sometimes limited in our ability to affect change. But what student government does is it bridges a gap for those voices to be heard. Student regent is an incredible role. However, the student regent speaks primarily off of their own experience. Representatives within student government, especially the student body president, has an incredible opportunity to speak on behalf of experiences of other people to people in the room who can make changes, like the vice president of student life or the dean of the students, et cetera. And so I think that perspective and that opportunity that we have to represent the student body, to engage with them, to be available for them, is ultimately what makes student government what it is, and how we can be better by remembering that role and pushing ourselves to engage and to be available.
Thank you. Dalton?
Yes, similar to what Hunter was talking about, I definitely think that student government has done just a great job of advocating overall for the entire student body and their student needs. I think we've also done just a great job of just providing organizations with funds and different resources to continually to help those organizations just kind of grow as their own separate entity, which I know Hunter was talking a little bit about kind of what Senate has been funding. So that's kind of where I'm speaking about. But I definitely think that student government is just really moving in the right direction of advocacy and just helping the different groups here on campus grow. And so I think that kind of by just continuing in this direction and in this direction of like improved representation and just working with all organizations on campus, just instead of the same few that we work with kind of annually. I think that we can just really become a more approachable organization. Like I said earlier, I really want to kind of help educate the student body on what student government does. I know Hunter was kind of touching on it as well. And so like when I say approachable, I mean like students know what we're doing in student government. They know that we are available consistently and constantly to help them with any needs, any concerns. And so which that is the big role of student body president as well, is to just advocate for students' needs and just for the masses. And so I just really think that is kind of the main role of student government and the student body president.
Thank you. The next question is, how will you be accessible to students raising concerns about the work student government does? We'll start with Hunter.
Absolutely. So the T in my plan to talk about bringing greater belonging at Baylor is transparency. And so I think that if there's not accessibility, there can't be transparency. And so the first idea that I have is to be transparent about office hours, because I hope that the office of student body president can be used for students to feel comfortable and to feel like that office is approachable. And posting simply something as little as posting office hours so students know when they can have, an open door to come and visit and to discuss issues that they have or questions that they have or concerns that might be raised. I think that could be the most practical means. But outside of that, I know that the student Office of Student Life hosts weekly, or I believe it's monthly feedback forums for student org leaders to come and bring, their happenings, their concerns, you name it, before administrators, especially like Kevin Jackson, Vice President of Student Life. And having spoken with current Student Body President Gracie Kelleher, she's talked about how important that is for her to stay engaged and to stay connected with, like I said earlier, just the needs and the issues and the hopes and the wants of the student body. So I would encourage more of those, as well as whoever that office holder is, to encourage them to use their platform as student body president to attend those sessions. And then lastly, just brainstorming other beneficial and practical means to make sure that student government is connected to the student body. And so I know Student Senate has historically done a Senate weekly wrap up. After every Senate meeting, they'll post on their Instagram stories and say, this is the list of things that we talked about. Here's progress that was made. And unfortunately, that has just been done away with this past semester. And so I would love to bring that back, potentially writing articles and offering them for the Lariat to help use the Lariat as a window to bridge happenings in student government, maybe meeting with orgs directly. Those are just ideas that I've brainstormed. I think that there's more, but trying to figure out what's the most practical way to make sure that the students know that this office is available to them and not just something that they vote on once a year and then have no idea what's happening throughout the in-between.
Absolutely. Dalton?
Yes. So I know I've been talking a lot about just educating the student body on kind of the inner workings of student government. And so one of my points is accessibility. And so with my accessibility point, it's focusing a lot on just promoting and educating the student body on the different resources that are available for with student government and also with the university itself. And so I just think that if we begin advertising just the inner workings of student government, like in Senate, like those weekly recap meetings or recap videos, excuse me, we can just raise more awareness to the kind of function of student government, and that comfortability will just kind of come in, like I was saying earlier. And so students will be more aware, they will be more willing to just come and speak to student government and just ask for help. They'll be more just comfortable to come and ask the student body president during their office hours, just ask for help in any way, shape, or form. And so I just really want the student body to know that both myself and Hunter and student government is all just available for them to come and just ask for help. So, yes.
Thank you. The next question is, what are your thoughts on PRISM? Was this the right move? How would your role influence the LGBTQ plus population on campus, if at all? And for this one, we'll start with you, Dalton.
Okay. Yes, so I definitely believe that the university had worked within just a framework that was created by our Board of Regents just to establish an organization that is aligned with kind of both the students' needs and the universities. And so both Gamma and PRISM are able to operate as separate entities. And this just means that they're able to coexist with their separate missions. And so I'm excited about PRISM just because it's an organization of this nature is just kind of it's groundbreaking for Baylor. And so I really hope that this organization is just a place for students to flourish in. And just as student body president, this role is just to hear the wants and needs of students and advocates on their behalf. And so I believe this is what happened with the creation of PRISM. And I do believe that PRISM is just evidence that advocacy works. And so I do think that this is a step in the right direction for student voices that weren't heard in the past. And it's my mission to make Baylor feel like home for all students, and organizations like PRISM definitely help more students feel connected to our university and to just each other. So, yes.
Thank you. Hunter?
Yes, I would also echo what Dalton said in a lot of capacities about how PRISM is a big deal for Baylor students. And I know that every student has their own individual thoughts on this. Having talked with one of the advisors for student government, Tanner Vickers, he made the comment, as Dalton alluded to, that the Board of Regents gave a framework for Dr. Livingstone and other administrators to work within. And I believe that they did so really well. I think one of my critiques, however, is that after the Board of Regents publicly agreed to hear a conversation about this, I feel like it was radio silent and there just was no conversation until maybe 2 weeks ago. Tanner had said to me that they've landed on a name, it's going to be Prism, and then it was quiet again. And then this past week, they've been chartered. And I think that absolutely this is evidence that advocacy can lead to action. However, I think that we're missing a crucial spot, which is conversation along the way and student inclusion, which is why I come back to transparency. And I think that student government doesn't have a large capacity to play necessarily in this Prism conversation specifically, since we saw that it was so much about higher levels. However, the student body president, as someone afforded to sit in conversations about those for a large capacity, it puts a lot of burden and opportunity on the student body president to engage the student population in the happenings of what is going on in those conversations, because I know a lot of students do care about what's going on. And so certainly this is a big deal, because regardless of your opinion on this issue, students have not felt heard and celebrated and seen on campus. And like I said, with the Bible verse I presented at the very beginning of this, God has created each and every person and placed them here at Baylor, I firmly believe. And if we are not creating opportunity for the members of the body to come together, then I believe that we are not doing the full service of what we ought to be doing. And so now I'm excited for the future to figure out how these conversations can continue happening. Dalton used the phrase that it is a step in the right direction, and I agree, but the implication of that is that we're not done. And so to figure out how to go forward from here, Gamma and Prism have been going back and forth via social media and kind of collaborating. I know that one of their officers had talked about how Gamma supports Prism. And so it's cool to see the organizations working together and not mutually excluding either of the other. But to figure out just what that network of relationship is going to look like, how they're going to depend on each other, what their roles are going to look like now with potentially different missions and et cetera. But it's certainly the groundwork has begun, but the conversation is not over.
Thank you. The next question is, what are your plans to address issues of racism and or diversity on campus? Whoever wants to go first can.
I can go ahead and do that. Perfect. So just kind of my plans to address the issues of racism and diversity on campus. I really do want to focus on just engagement with all of the multicultural organizations here on campus. I feel like they're not engaged with enough. And so I think that they have voices and they need to be heard. And so I think that by, going to, their meetings, going to their events, putting student government out there, making it more known that these multicultural groups are, they're there for us to, be friends with, to work with, all of that. I think that is very important. And so I also plan on definitely holding the 2020 commission report that Baylor had put out, I guess, a couple of years ago. I want to definitely hold that accountable, because I think that is a very important report that needs to be followed up with and followed through with. And so I want to do that. And then just a big way to hold Baylor accountable is through the commission's report. And then also I really want to just have continued conversation with administration and surrounding these issues related to racism and diversity on campus. And that is something that I definitely will put as a priority as student body president and just as a student here on campus. So, thank you.
Thank you. Hunter?
I am really excited about this question because it segues perfectly into the L of my TALK platform, which is learning. And one of the sub ideas of learning is recognizing Baylor's history and where we've come from, but using that as an opportunity to keep going forward. And so I also would echo the idea of this commission report that it's so important. I think it's another instance of where advocacy has led to action, which is exciting to see as a student. But those types of conversations, I feel like we've seen historically, both within Baylor and outside of, they only arise out of pressure put on by people, providing that pressure. And I think the students need to be able to continue to ask for that commission report as a source of accountability. And so to use the Office of Student Body President for that would be one of my agenda items for sure. Something that I think is very fascinating that I didn't know about until gathering research for this campaign is that the diversity, equity, and inclusion training that all students do and receive at the beginning of each academic year is level 1 of the multicultural affairs Leave Your Mark training. And I didn't realize that there's 100 levels of that training. And so I would love to have a conversation with multicultural affairs about the value of that training, what levels have the most value, because to say that currently we're only fulfilling 1% of that curriculum doesn't seem appropriate or sufficient to say that we're being responsible with resources available to us. And so try to reframe what is that Leave Your Mark training? Can we leave some kind of more proficient base level training for students, maybe asking that if you're on an executive committee for your organization or you're some kind of organization leader, is there an extra opportunity that you have to engage in these conversations? But ultimately, I think Dalton was right, just celebrating these communities that are on campus, especially the ones that for so long haven't felt seen or recognized. And one encouraging thing that I see is that COVID has kind of given an incredible restart for culture at Baylor. And so something like Delta Epsilon Size Movie Night at McLean, that can become now this new big student experience that rivals that of something like Pi Phi's Howdy or Christmas on Fifth. With before COVID, these didn't exist, but after we've come back from COVID, we kind of have this. Every student is like, what does it look like to have a student experience on campus? What does it look like to be involved? And we can kind of rewrite what that looks like in a way that celebrates all cultures' experience and frames of reference on Baylor's campus.
Thank you. My next question is, what are other plans you have for your potential time in office? Dalton, if you want to get started on that.
Yes. So I haven't talked too much about kind of my platform, but I know I've touched on accessibility. Community is kind of my first point, and with community, that kind of goes back to our last question about just diversity on campus. And so I have a big point on there about creating more cross-cultural discussions among all groups on campus, just because I don't feel like there is an area for just or a space for students to feel comfortable in voicing their concerns, or different cultural groups to voice their concerns. And so by creating that discussion across with student government and with these organizations, I feel that we'll better be able to accommodate them and to just advocate on their behalf and just listen to their needs. And so that is my kind of community point. I do have two other points, which are affordability and sustainability. And with affordability, Baylor is just kind of, it's a hefty price, I think we all know. And so I want to really focus on kind of the internal pricing of a lot of things that students have to pay for out of pocket. And so like textbook prices, I really want to look into lower textbook prices. That is something that is just kind of outrageous, because you can get like 2 science textbooks for like $500, and then you have to still buy 2 more, and so it's just like, it's kind of crazy. And so I really want to look into like standardized packaging for all of that as well. And then the other point for affordability is our Student Care and Wellness Fund. So a lot of students don't know what our Student Care and Wellness Fund is. It is through student government. It is a fund that we have for students that experience unexpected expenses. And so serving as a member for these past 2 years on the Student Care and Wellness Fund, I've just seen a lot of students in need, but the fund doesn't have enough money. And so I'm also looking into growing that fund. And so we're able to give out more money to students in need as well. And my last point, sustainability. This is a point that will probably pair with our external vice president more so. But I really believe that Baylor Dining Hall food waste, there's so much of it that it needs to be used for something more than just going to a landfill. And so I think by shifting or redirecting our food waste to maybe the poor communities in Waco, or the homeless population, or students on campus experiencing food insecurities, is very important. And then also maybe composting some of that just uneatable food, just composting all of that, and like using it for the environment around us is very important, because just the environment around us, if the environment around us is flourishing, then so are the students on campus, so is the Waco community, because we do live here. And so it is important to take care of the area that we live in. So yes, that is kind of my platform and potential plans for my time in office.
Thank you. Hunter?
Absolutely. So we've talked a lot about transparency and my heart for transparency. And I think one of the things that I also want to echo with that is we need more representation, and we need to hear the voices of a lot of underrepresented students. And so I think I would first use that pillar of my platform to encourage the future of the student body to, when they approach student government elections, you're not just voting for your best friend. We're voting for people who are qualified based off of a diversity of experience that they represent, as well as, extending the resources that we have for student government to all of those communities, because a lot of Panhellenic and IFC organizations take advantage of the student government allocation fund. But what about the rest of the student body? And what about, how do we communicate other resources like the SCAF, for example? The SICWIF, Student Care and Wellness Fund. Outside of transparency, advocacy is something that is very important to me as a senator for the past 2 years, and having worked at the Big 12 on the Hill Conference, I understand the importance and the need of advocacy. And part of my journey at Baylor has included mental health, and so mental health problems, and I would love to champion that. One idea that I have is maybe trying to talk with the calendar committee to see what are ways that we can potentially build in and safeguard and respect a day off or a day to observe mental health awareness in the fall, potentially, as well as an opt-in bear care for students and faculty. And so the way that I think about this is, for students who were at Baylor during COVID, there is a bear coach, I think is what it was called, maybe something where a faculty team member at Baylor had the opportunity to reach out to a student to just check in on them, to make sure that that student was cared for, and that anything and everything that could be done from Baylor's perspective was being done, because it was just a hard time. And an idea that I have would be to bring that back as an opt-in situation, where I know that there are a lot of faculty members who have a deep care for Baylor students, and they have the margin to care for them. And I also know that there are a lot of students, especially freshmen, who come to campus and they struggle to feel like there's anybody who cares for them and is looking out for their interests. And I would love to create this opt-in bear care, where this mutual agreement of people who want to feel celebration of belonging at Baylor can come and pour into each other, or be reminded that you don't have to leave Baylor because you don't feel like you belong, because there are people who will make you feel belong until you can find your people. Outside of mental health, food insecurity would be incredible. Could we create some type of fund for people to donate their unused dining dollars in the sub back to people who can't afford to replenish those, etc.? Advocacy also means affordability, accessibility. One of the things I've heard from my friends with OLA is that the OLA shuttle doesn't run as late as Baylor's classes run. And so some of them might get dropped off in class for a 5:30 class, but the shuttle doesn't come back at the end of the day to come get them because of just hours of OLA shuttle. And so trying to talk with OLA about how we can best meet that accommodation, etc. We talked a lot about learning. Fair academic policies and advocating for that also falls under the umbrella of learning. But most importantly, with learning, I want to hit home the idea of how can we learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and in the most appropriate way. And then lastly is keeping our momentum. We have done a lot. We've made a lot of positive strides forward as a university, especially in this past year. We're taking incredible strides in national news media with Tier 1 Research University, with success in our athletics. And I just don't want to compromise our values, our mission, or any of that for this national media press that we're getting. And I think that as a STEM student who has a religious conviction, I think I perfectly embody Baylor's mission to be Christ-centered, but also considerate for empathy, excellence, and Christian conviction. And so trying to represent that to the globe of what we stand for, who we are, and our identity, and implementing that into the future Baylor Bears would be something that I would love to continue through the Office of the Student Body President.
Thank you. My last question before we get into like final concluding statements is, what would make you the best candidate for the position you are running for? Whoever wants to go first can.
I can go ahead and do it. Yes, so I believe that I am just the best candidate for student body president because I have a proven track record for advocacy, and I'm just passionate about genuine representation. And so the students here on campus deserve to benefit from student government, and that's where we value and prioritize just their voices. And so this mission is what just kind of fuels my desire for this presidency. And I just really want to make Baylor feel like home to all students, and I want them to feel heard, and I want them to know that I'm there to advocate for them on their behalf. And so I'm just certain that kind of this, that I could just really make large strides in pursuit of this goal just next year. So thank you.
Thank you. Hunter?
I certainly believe that I am well beyond qualified for this position. Um, Obviously, my time within student government, I believe, has proven my heart and concern for a diversity of populations of students on campus, as well as my heart to impact not just Baylor, but also Waco and beyond Waco in my time through student government. So I think first and foremost, my experience qualifies me for this position, but I also argue that my lack of experience within student government makes me uniquely qualified. And what I mean by that is that I actually was not in student government as a freshman. And the only reason why I knew who the student body president was at the time is because I considered working in her cabinet and ultimately decided not to. And so I have a firsthand experience of what it's like to be a student and to not know who's representing me, what conversations are being had, where to go if I need help, how to represent myself, or how to advocate for a need that I have. And so that's ultimately why I feel so inspired and empathize so much with the general student experiences, because I knew what it was like. I know what it's like to not know. And I don't think that that's how shared governance is supposed to work. And so hopefully through both my time within student government as well as outside of student government, you can see that I am qualified. And simply, I just really want this. I cared so much about an opportunity to give back to the students and offer myself as a resource for a student body EVP last year. And I was received so well that I have been encouraged to come back. And so that's what I'm doing again. It's just offering myself so that Baylor students can see my heart for talking about belonging at Baylor, because I believe that I found my belonging at Baylor and I can celebrate that. And there was a time when I didn't, and I know that there are students right now who can't say the same. And I would like to create a new normal where people can say that they found their belonging here.
Awesome. Thank you. And then for closing statements, go ahead and just say anything you feel like you maybe didn't get a chance to, or anything you want to add. And also include where students can find more information about your campaign or your profiles or anything like that. We'll start with Hunter.
Awesome. Well, first, I just want to thank you so much, Ava, and the rest of the Lariat for just your time today and after this. I am so glad to be back presenting my heart for Baylor University, our future, and the celebration of all that we have done and will continue to do before the student body. For more about my campaign, you can follow my personal Instagram at Hunt, HUNT_Walker on Instagram, or my campaign account, Walk with Walker _ also on Instagram. I cannot emphasize enough the importance and significance of voting. Voting is your opportunity to come to the polls, to make your decision, and to first and foremost begin that process of advocacy and engagement with student government. Last year, an election that I was in went to a runoff, and voter turnout is so important in that. And so I'm asking for high voter turnout. I'm asking for students to be involved, to cast their vote, to use their voice because they have a voice. I genuinely do believe that God is doing a mighty work here at Baylor. I'm so proud to call myself a Baylor Bear, and that's why I walk with Baylor University. I'm asking y'all to walk with me. And so walk with Walker, April 26th and 7th, and look for your email for an opportunity to vote and choose Hunter Walker for your next student body president.
Thank you. Dalton?
Yes, I just want to also thank you, Ava, for hosting this debate and along with the Lariat. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to even be able to run for a position like this for student body president, because, as a freshman coming in, you don't really know where you're going to go. You're a few years out. And so being able to be in this position has just been an honor in itself. And so I have been able to hear the needs and the areas of campus that students really need more advocating for. And I really want in this kind of as student body president to be able to advocate for those groups that are just not represented as much as they need to be. And so you guys can find more of my platform, more information on my platform on Instagram. It's going to be at Depend on Dalton, DALTON. And so all of my platform is on there, but I really just, like Hunter was saying, I really want you guys to go and vote on the 26th and 27th, because voter turnout is a really big deal, and it really does help us, help you have a voice. And so I just think it is very important for you guys to go and vote. And so I just really hope that you guys will depend on Dalton on the 26th and 27th and vote me for your next student body president. Thank you.
So all voting information and links to the candidates information will be in the video description. This has been the 2022 Student Body President Baylor Lariat debate, and I thank you all for watching.